Everyone to the council meeting of Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. Before we call the meeting to order, I'd like to and do the land acknowledgement. I'd like to address a couple of housekeeping items. When in chamber, please put your phone on vibrate or silence in order that it doesn't interrupt with the discussion. When people come to speak at the mic, and councillors, when you speak, directly into them, please, so that you're clearly understood for those that are viewing this at home and for the live streaming and YouTube feeds after the meeting. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people and an ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the historic Métis community in Penetangwishí. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationship with this land, specifically the Chippewas of Rama First Nations, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that has thrived for millennia in this territory and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We're all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can all move forward together towards reconciliation. Megwich. Madam Clerk, may we have a draft motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 be received and adopted as amended to add item 14C, correspondence re Oro-Medonte Connects, business breakfast and AI insights, Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. Doors open 7:30 a.m. Hardwood Ski and Bike RSVP by April 10th, 2026 to area Aurelia and area CDC at their website, which is www.aureliacdc.com/events/Oro-Medonte Connects. And staff recommendation is received for information only.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Members of council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest in today's meeting? Seeing none. Closed session item will be moved to 18 and dealt at the towards the end of the meeting. Madam Clerk, may we have a draft motion for the two sets of minutes, please? Or there's only one, sorry.
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, March the 11th, 2026 be received and adopted as printed and circulated.
All in favor? That is carried. We have no recognitions of achievements on the agenda this week, and we have no public meetings. So we're now to deputation presentation. So I'd like to welcome Inspector Todd Landon and Sergeant Matthew Stoner. Thank you for coming today, and please, Inspector, if you'd like to start off.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having us today and giving us the opportunity to come and speak to you about our community mobilization unit. Matt Stoner, Sergeant Matt Stoner, 28-year veteran with the OPP, and he's been running our unit for approximately 6 years. He's going to take us through the presentation of the community mobilization unit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. I'm going to walk you through our purpose, our mission, our structure, the education, engagement, and enforcement that we conduct, some of our ongoing projects as well as our past successes, and then we'll have a conclusion and some questions at the end if you have any. Next slide, please. So our purpose, we're a dedicated team focusing on community issues with the goal of developing strategies to connect community partners, promote community safety, and reduce overall calls for service within the detachment area. Our mission, we develop those strategies of identified crime and traffic areas, engage, educate, and enforce with the objective of community safety. Our goal is to promote public safety and reduce crime and support mental health related incidents within the detachment area. Next slide, please. So currently this is our structure. We have 2 community engagement officers. Right now, we have 1 position that is vacant. But we will have 2 at some point. That's a typo. That should be 4 community mobilization officers, and then 2 mobile crisis response team officers. They're dedicated. And then we have, for crisis workers, are given to us by CMHA. We have 2.5, but right now we have a current enhancement that makes that half a full-time position, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the community engagement officers, they are our media partnerships, do our communications. They work school youth programs and initiatives, community safety programs. They do announcements and presentations within the community, and they support your community events. Next slide, please. Community mobilization members. So as I said, we have 4 of them, along with 1 MCERT or 2 MCERT officers. So on each side, we have 2 rotations. There's 7-day-a-week coverage. On each side, there's 3 officers, 1 mobile crisis response team member with 2 community mobilization members. The community mobilization members are responsible for developing and executing any initiatives we have or identified issues within the community. They will also be the backup officers for our mobile crisis response team. They will assist with community services and partnerships as well. And next slide, please. So our mobile crisis response team, they do the mental health and addiction calls for service within the detachment areas. It is 1 officer with a crisis worker integrated with them. Their job is to build partnerships, find linkages for the individual in crisis, and get them navigated through the health system. They also will conduct mental health follow-up calls. They build partnerships with community organizations and offer referrals to resources as needed. They are to reduce strain on emergency services. So these are labor or resource intensive calls, and they not only alleviate the calls from the police, but as well as the hospital and the paramedics. I can't speak to their savings, but for us, we do see some advantages. We have 2 teams, and like I said, 7-day-a-week coverage. Next slide, please. So the crisis workers are county provided. They're full-time and dedicated to our team. There's 2 full-time. We've managed to get an enhancement in the past for a part-time person that does more outreach and support. So while we have 2 in the car integrated with officers 7 day a week, we have 1 working Monday to Friday. They are normally part-time, so it's 2 days a week that we have them. Now, with an enhancement grant, we have them for full-time hours, Monday to Friday. They roughly do about 30 calls for service a month on the part-time, and that's a CMHA statistic, so they can speak to that if we need to down the road. But we're expecting this to be bigger now that it's full-time, and those 30 calls are at least a couple hours in length, and this person takes them and alleviates an officer having to do that call. So their job is to build partnerships, do linkages. We do the situation table as well with the community, and we help out with connecting resources. Next slide, please. This is the Ontario Mobilization and Engagement Model. If anybody has or has not seen it, we want to be in the blue. Our unit will work throughout the quadrants, depending on the situation or the call for service. And some calls for service might jump around within the quadrants, so they go from engagement and liaison to enforcement and suppression to mobilization and prevention. And then we want to always be in the community safety and consultation, where we're working with our partners to come up with ways to combat crime. Next slide, please. So these are some of the tasks that fall under the quadrants that our unit does. A lot of our stuff comes from analysis or analytics, and that's where we start to come up with our initiatives. Then we initiate the problem solving, bring people to the table that can help us throughout the community solve those problems. Next slide, please. So these are some of our ongoing projects. Obviously, we have our mental health MCERT, mobile crisis response team, and our outreach. We work with group homes, encampments, Alzheimer's, dementia support, and mental health addictions, and some social economic crime issues as well, not necessarily just crime. We also look after thefts, break and enter initiatives, so if we notice that there's a trend or pattern, we will assist and engage other units within the OPP to assist. On our own, we look after a youth leadership week where we identify youth within the community who may benefit from some experience or confidence building. We lead this at this time, but we are looking for partnerships within the community to assist us, and we usually have a keynote speaker and some activities for the youth so they learn about their community. We also participate in a basketball camp where we recommend youth who are underprivileged or could benefit from some confidence, and we recommend them to a basketball camp, and we also participate with other summer camps within the area of recommending youth. Our CEO, our engagement officer right now, has been conducting a lot of lockdown drills within the schools, conducting bus foot patrol training, and we did do bicycle training in the past, and we're expecting to have some with the season change. And most of their time is spent with online bullying and language safety information sessions. Some of our stuff in the past, we did initiatives throughout the detachment area regarding shoplifting, and we were very successful, and we're currently updating and refreshing that strategy. We create information pamphlets, and we host information sessions within the community. We also worked with community partners regarding any panhandling or busking within the communities, and we do have an encampment strategy where we help engage individuals who are in encampments and help them link into resources where necessary. The next slide, please. So our conclusion is our unit is going to continually develop and maintain a coordinated detachment and community response to identified issues within your community and communities within our detachment area. And that's my last slide. So if there's any questions.
Oh, thank you very much, Sergeant Stoner. Council, I'll open the floor for questions. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yes, thank you very much, Sergeant, for your presentation. Very much appreciated. Can you perhaps could you describe how this service varies from what we're currently experiencing by way of such programs, and how that might assist in the future context, the experience, in the neighborhoods?
So are you looking for a comparison of what we're doing now to what we did in the past?
Yeah, I mean, there would have been motivation to make change, I presume. So based on that strategic plan for that motivation, how did that evolve?
So the unit was established a long time ago. We had one mental health worker and one officer dedicated, and the calls for service were like the quantity was overworking them, and they were very good at their job. And they worked long hours and very hard, but we were realizing that we couldn't do 7-day-a-week coverage. We could do more more calls and participate in more calls. And the benefit of having the CMHA worker is that there's a person there that can connect individuals. These are normally health-related issues. They're not police matters. The reason why the police are called is for public safety, danger to self or others, and we are there to protect people. But to have a crisis worker with the experience can link people in. So the benefit to getting a second one is we could reach out to more people. So in 2020, we estimated that we would have a skyrocket of calls due to COVID, and we did have a spike, and we expanded the unit, and we kept that spike under control. And now we've even expanded further, because what we realized was during those times we had the outreach worker. We could reach out to people proactively. So individuals that may or may not have been dealt with by the police, who might fall back into the category because they've become disconnected with the resources, we reach out to them now. So we're one of only detachments probably doing this. I know that some police services have a worker doing something similar, but I think we have a dedicated one now. And that's part-time, but we did get the enhancement to make that full-time. And we've noticed that even with a spike in calls, we're able to bring that down. And it correlates to when we had this worker, but we have a lot of work to do with those statistics to figure out how that works. But the unit has come a long way in the last 5 years, and we've linked in a lot more community partners. The landscape for mental health and addiction is there's a plethora of resources, but it's very hard to navigate. And myself being in the field, if I ever came under crisis, it would be very difficult for me in stress or crisis to even figure out where to go. So these are resources that are needed in the community, and we're used constantly. Every day we have a team in, and they're being requested by either individuals in the community or by frontline officers to help de-escalate or find somebody the help that they need.
Supplemental?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And it's very important, I think, to recognize the connection between the mental health issues and getting support, you know, in a multidisciplinary fashion so that people can get help and they're not returning to these troublesome issues and continuing to be a burden both to themselves and society at large. So thank you very much for addressing those concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchison, then Councillor Shell.
Thank you for your presentation. And, you know, we know you cover Aurelia, but certainly these issues we're not immune to them here in Oro-Medonte as well. And you spoke to, you know, engaging with communities and partnering with communities. What would that look like for you in a rural community like ours, and how can we help you with that engagement?
Well, some of the resources based on the community wellness planning, I was on that. So we did, as much as my presentation says Aurelia, it is for the detachment area, which encompasses your community. And we name our detachment the Aurelia Detachment, but you are our community, and we are out here consistently dealing with members of your community. But the problem is that a lot of these resources have to be in a bigger city. That's where they're going to be focused in, and the hospitals are in the cities. So for here, we can either go to Barrie or we can go to Aurelia. Some of the things I think that we would deal with out here might be encampments. The mental health calls for service, we're going to deal with and take them to the nearest facility that's in the act. So from our standpoint, the support that we would need really is that the funding is done by grant funding. So we do have county resources funding parts of our team, and that is consistently being looked at. But the enhancement, we've identified that we needed it. We've got an enhancement grant to make that full time, but in 2027, that's gone. And that's kind of how the team expands, and then we've got to find funding or we lose that sort of stuff. So those are types of supports that we would need from councils or the community. But other than that, most of this is the health field, and our goal is to help these individuals navigate the health field. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shell?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to go along with what Councillor Hutchinson has mentioned, I'm trying to figure out, is there other areas or other people out in the community when you can seek partnership? I think you used the word partnership earlier. You know, I know you're also talking about having support like financial and all that stuff, but what other I'm going to say community clubs or sports teams or things like that nature that could help?
Yeah, as I'm sure you're aware, the concerns and what we focus on or deal with in Aurelia is considerably different than the challenges we have in Oro. So a lot of what we've done, and I spent the fall of last year, just before Christmas there, spending time in all the schools, getting the buy-in from the principals for our presence for the other areas that Sergeant Stoner spoke about. I think that's probably one of the bigger impacts that we can have here, that from the calls for service we get from Oro-Medonte and the concerns around youth and bikes and the misuse and properly using them in different areas. And I think we've had a large disconnect over the last couple of years with the schools, so we've been invited back. I've made that a priority for us, and then it's actually Sergeant Stoner's unit, as well as some of our frontline members that start to do those engagements and not only do the training, but we're encouraging just showing up and being visible, because often we're called in when it's crisis. So these children and teens are not seeing us in a good light. They're seeing us when they're in crisis, and we're trying to develop a different relationship with them. So I'm really pushing that as a community support with the schools in the entire detachment area in which we police.
But just to add, other organizations, like we work closely with your bylaw, fire department, and there are other groups within, depending on the call, we will engage local resources. So whether that's sports teams, Kiwanis, Lions clubs, all that stuff, it'll depend on the nature of the call, but we do access all of those.
Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious about the age. You mentioned schools, and I assume you deal with a lot of street people as well, not just going into residences or whatever. So what is the most people you deal with in terms of age? Is it youth, or is it the middle age gap, or is it the older people you deal with here?
In your community, or by and large?
Well, yeah, I would suspect really with most people type of thing.
And we're talking like encampments or like types of calls?
Yeah, just types of calls and street people and encampments and that you respond to. What would the ages be?
Mostly young adult to older adult. Youth usually are directed into homes or covered by CAS, but doesn't mean that they're not there. But prevalency is usually young adults to adults. And don't really have those numbers, so can't give you like a true demographic, but most of the individuals we deal with at encampment are adult age. Welcome.
Any other questions, council? I think what you're doing is great. I think this is very, very, very important. Educating people at a very young age in order to guide them down the right path will hopefully, it's a lot cheaper long-term than rehabilitating people that have got themselves into those situations. So understanding like we're a large municipality, I'm a big advocate for getting into the schools and getting the message across. And but I also understand because we're a big municipality, we have a lot of schools. Like, would there be a kind of plan or schedule to get into every school at least once a year or twice a cycle year in order to get that messaging out? Because I think that is a better path forward to get at them young, make the right impressions, and hopefully give them the right guidance then late teens into the early adulthoods where we want to make sure we don't not pay attention to that to try and keep things as well under control. And we're fortunate we may not have, or it may not be obvious that that problem exists here to the level it does in maybe more urban centers, but maybe it does and we're just not aware of it. But I just was hoping you can give some ideas to what the schedule or game plan is to address this educational component with the schools in Oro-Medonte.
So we would agree with you that we'd like to be in the schools regularly. This is new, getting back into it, so we're breaking into it slowly. There are some things that guide it. The OPP has some ways that we're moving forward with it, and we're trying to get in slowly and make sure that we can keep this relationship moving. So the schedule is, there isn't really a schedule, but we are available to all schools, whether if they call and they want us, we're willing to come out, and we're willing to participate in ways that they think that we can help them. And we're also willing to interact with the children. So right now, I can't really answer your schedule question because it is in its infancy, but we are willing and able to get out if we're requested.
Yeah, no, perfect. No, and I think I know this is, it's important that we work collaboratively together in order to get something that, not to be self-centered on Oro-Medonte, but that's who we are here to represent. And we'll reach out to the schools that we have, great relationships with to let them know of this service and and opportunity for them to tap into.
That'd be great, and I believe the inspector's done that as well, and we have our engagement officer that talks to them, so that would be great if you could support us on that.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Councillor Young?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I applaud you guys and the OPP for this program. It's much needed out there, as you know. So,
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I appreciate, gentlemen, for both of you come and it's a great presentation. It's a great project that this council is in full support of, and hopefully, you know, Inspector Landon will work with you with the schools to try and ensure that we get lots of traction there, to be ahead of the game, because this has been a problem that seems to be growing, and hopefully we can manage it as best possible, as best as we can, right? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, can I have a motion to receive the deputation, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the presentation by Inspector Todd Landon and Sergeant Matthew Stoner, Ontario Provincial Police, OPP, Community Mobilization Unit be received.
All in favor? That is carried. And is there anybody in chamber that needs an item moved up as they're not staying for the rest of the meeting versus where it is on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to open forum. Madam Clerk, is anyone registered for open forum?
No, Mr. Mayor, there isn't, but I believe there may be members in the gallery who are looking to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. If anyone in the gallery would like to speak to any of the items on the agenda today, you know, please come forward. Just state your name at the mic and adjust it so you're speaking clearly into it. It'd be greatly appreciated. And welcome, Miss Voorhees. Just
Thank
helping
you.
you out, so you don't have to say your name.
I
But
don't?
You still can. You still should, because it is protocol.
That's true. I will follow protocol. Jane Voorhees, Oro-Medonte. Wow. I can't believe we're here. Can't believe I'm here. Hello, everyone. So I'm here to speak about 12A. I believe it's Mr. Bin's presentation. I think it's 12A. Is that correct?
Correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
So now that compensation from the city of Barrie has been honored, I believe it's a time for reflection. This annexation process started about 2.5 years ago, when the mayor of Barrie, Mr. Nuttall, decided to take out a pencil and draw a big line around Oro-Medonte's land and stated he wanted to annex it for industrial purposes. After a lot of money was spent by municipalities, specifically the Hempson report, that evidence-based report found that the city of Barrie did not require our land for annexation and for industrial purposes. However, sadly, that annexation process steamrolled ahead. During this process, I've learned the sad truth about political bullies and political bed partners that manipulate evidence to get what they want. But the biggest lesson I learned is that communities are not defined by a line on a map. They're defined by the people that stand up for the land that they love and protect. The people of Oro-Medonte, and I know our council and our staff, have been through a very difficult annexation process. It brought many uncertainties, and for many residents, a sense of loss. And yet, through it all, the residents and the group Friends of the Future stood tall. As you know, we spoke up, we gathered, people asked questions, difficult questions. They attended many town halls, not out of anger, but because of a deep love for our community. Many times I wondered whether our voice really mattered. And sadly, sometimes the process left me feeling that we were just a theater in a big political machine. But at the end, I did learn that our voices did matter. They mattered to each other. They mattered to you as council and to our staff. And it did strengthen our resolve. I'm also aware keenly that the annexation process was very challenging and frustrating and a demanding journey for our council and for our staff members. I know that the annexation process, I believe, was flawed. It was irresponsible, it wasn't fulsome, and it was very rushed. But I'm very proud of our township council. I want to sincerely thank our Mayor Greenlaw, our Deputy Mayor Lavoie, all of our council members, as well as our CAO Sean Binns, George Van de Boncure, and our communications team led by Jenny Ledet, and our clerk's office, Jeanette Teeter and Yvonne Aubuchon, who all worked very hard to bring this annexation to a conclusion. Today, while no agreement can replace what was lost, securing fair compensation acknowledges that this transition came at a real cost. For that, I owe a sincere gratitude to the residents and our council for caring very deeply and never stopping to speak up for us. But now we look ahead. The land that was annexed was intended for residential growth, as clearly stated in the Hempson report. The City of Barrie now has the responsibility to honor that commitment and keep its word and follow the Hempson report's evidence. Residents, we have one simple expectation, that these commitments and statements made by the City of Barrie are honored and that these lands remain residential. So a big thank you from me. I'm a very proud resident of Oro-Medonte. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Voorhees. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to any of the matters on the agenda? Seeing none, then we'll move on to reports of municipal officers for action. Item 11A. Madam Clerk, may you read the motion, please?
Moved by Young, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that DS 2026-042, Curtis Shelswell, Manager, Municipal Law Services, set fines, bylaw number 2021-005, Parking and Traffic Bylaw be received and adopted. That the set fines as outlined in the report and subsequent motion related to the bylaw number 2021-005, a bylaw to provide for the restricting and regulating of traffic and parking on the highways or parts of highways under the jurisdiction of the Corporation of the Township of Oro-Medonte be approved. And that further, that the manager of municipal law forward the appropriate documentation to the Ministry of the Attorney General for approval.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And sorry for a second, Councillor Shell, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to, I guess, Curtis, if he's around. I had a call to...
Sorry, I'll open the floor for questions then. Sorry, I thought you had your card up before she...
Well, I tried to get it up, but we were going right in. I had no idea we were not going to bring this on
Oh, no,
the floor.
the motion, just the way it's laid out is the motion is read first, then we open
I beg your
for
pardon.
questions. So anyways, no, please go ahead and...
Okay, I had a call today from one of my constituents about item 17 on the working order here. Parking on a roadway where width of roadway is 6 meters or less. Could someone define that? Like, is that the paved portion of the road or the physical? Like, I understand your road allowance is 66 feet. Well, that's greater than 6 meters. So I guess that's part of the question. The person wants to know if, where can you park? to define that parking area.
Yeah, okay. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that question is related to 17A. But I believe that Mr. Shelswell is he online? I don't see him.
Or would you be able to answer that question? And then we'll come back to this, but as a rule, because that would, anyways, please. Yeah. Okay, so I see you're not, I guess where the confusion was, you're not talking about the agenda item 17, you're talking about within the report, the item, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
No, please, Mr. Spagnell, could you bring clarity to that, please?
Mayor Greenlaw, I guess, as far as the as that parameter there, so the width of the roadway is 6 meters or less. So the parking infraction would be that if you are parking on the roadway within the 6 meters is how I read that. Mr. Shelswell is not here today and on the call, but the way that I see that is that the ticket is provided if you are parking on the roadway, if the roadway is 6 meters or less. So you cannot be parked on the specific roadway in this specific situation, and the signage would be up according to that provision to display that parking is not permitted in that pretense as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, okay, no problem. Any other questions in regards to this? Then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. May we have a motion for a draft motion for 11B, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that CS 2026-05, Yvonne Aubuchon Clerk, RE 2025 Annual Accessibility Status Report be received and adopted. That upon council approval, the report be uploaded to the township website in accordance with provincial legislation requirements.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I think the positive here is we are making progress forward. Provincially, I don't think as a province as a whole, we're not up to the standards that were set to be achieved by 2025. But we need to do some more work, and I'm confident that we will get there. So, I'll open the floor for any other questions or comments.
I'm happy to speak to the report,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, would you like to give a brief overview? That'd be great. Greatly appreciated.
So the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee is through a number of the municipalities. We share a joint advisory committee. And the work that's achieved through annually through that committee is guided by the accessibility plan that is required through legislation. And then on top of that, we have to provide a status report every year for the achievements. So outlined in the report is the work that the committee has either reviewed or achieved over the past year in 2025. And then I've also outlined the achievements of the township, because while we are a joint committee, each township has their own work that has to be done, and in accordance with our own accessibility plan. So, and then they're done in accordance with the AOD standards. The 5 standards are customer service, transportation, information and communications, employment accessibility, and built environment, so designs of parks and outdoor spaces. So essentially, that's what this whole report outlines, is the work that we've achieved. I'm very proud of the work that the committee has done, and proud of the township and the work that we've achieved in breaking down barriers for our community. And we just continue to work forward, and year by year, we will get there.
Well, thank you very much for everything you've contributed in the report and the work you've done with this body, Clerk Aubuchon. So, is there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And none are opposed, so that is carried. May we have a draft motion for 11C, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that CS 2026-08, Yvonne Aubuchon, Clerk, Joint Compliance Audit Committee, JCAC, participation be received. That staff be directed to confirm the Township of Oro-Medonte's participation with the JCAC, facilitated by the County of Simcoe for the 2026 and all future municipal and school board elections and subsequent terms of office for as long as the county agrees to facilitate this committee. That prior to the deadline of October 1st, each election year, staff will bring forward the JCAC appointment bylaw for council's consideration.
Okay. We'll open the floor for any questions or comments. Seeing none, would you like to speak to this at all? It's pretty self-explanatory.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory,
Yep.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none opposed. That is carried. Now moved on to 12 reports of municipal officers for information. Mr. Binns, would you like to provide comments in regard to 12A, please, which is the boundary adjustment?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to council, it is hard to believe that it's almost been 2 years since we started officially the facilitation process with the Township of Springwater, the City of Barrie, and the County of Simcoe with the assistance of the Office of the Provincial and Land Development Facilitator. I think it's important to come back to what the objective of that facilitation process was, and really the objective was to find a mutually beneficial and mutually acceptable solution to growth. It has been a long process, and a process that has been full of challenges. The township, as we've outlined in the report, has remained consistent to its guiding principles that were established early in the process that guided the way through the process. While the township didn't agree with all elements, I think we did come to an agreement that was mutually acceptable and mutually beneficial. With the passing of Bill 76, that formally transferred the just over 1,100 acres of township land to the City of Barrie. And now with the enactment of the restructuring compensation agreement, it formally closes that chapter, and the matter is now formally concluded. I can report, and I'm pleased to report, that the township has received $10,155,000, which is consistent with the framework agreement endorsed by council in late fall of last year from the City of Barrie. And these funds have been directed into our reserve funds. You'll recall from the budget presentation that these funds will earn interest in our reserves and be used for the future replacement costs of our roads and our core infrastructure assets, so funding our asset management plan and really decreasing the future reliance of tax levy dollars to fund infrastructure replacement. As outlined in the report, there were other matters that were part of that framework agreement in terms of regional collaboration for economic development and employment growth. Those things are still on the radar. There's been really productive discussions with the County of Simcoe and the province about expanding employment lands in Oro-Medonte and those advancements. And we continue those discussions and continue to work through that process. So coming full circle to the objectives of the facilitation process, I really do think that this is a win for Oro-Medonte, both in the consideration of the funding that we've received, as well as the collaboration and moving forward with our employment lands. Is certainly a win for the Township of Oro-Medonte, as well as it is for the City of Barrie and their land acquisition. So again, the compensation received, again, with the collaboration, the province and the county positions the township well for future growth, economic resilience, and our long-term prosperity. So with that, Mayor Greenlaw, I think that's a summation, not to get into all the background, but really, the essence is this part of the chapter is closed, but we're also moving forward with a new chapter on expanded employment lands and working collaboratively to that end.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benz, and you basically covered off everything I was going to say, but I think I'd like to start off by thanking the residents, the facilitation team, this council, and all of our staff who have worked very hard on this matter for likely close to 3 years when we were initially approached by Barry and Springwater on this matter. So the professionalism, I know this is an emotional thing for a lot of people because it's land, and we all tend to get protective and tribal about giving our land to somebody else, but we, I think, did a very good job of sticking to the facts, sticking to the policies and procedures that currently existed, and negotiation and facilitations is never a smooth road. There's going to be obstacles. There was some audibles called that we adapted to, and I think it reflected in the end result of us getting $15,000 per developable acre, which is, from my understanding, because there were multiple offers throughout the process that we were told were the best offers ever in the history of Ontario. So I think we well exceeded from what was the best deal in Ontario, and I think when I look back and say, I think it's a fair deal. When you consider other annexations in the region over the last 20 years where some municipalities got nothing, zero compensation for the land loss. So my hat goes off to everybody that was a part of this process. And I am very also pleased that Barry in the end honored the proposal of October of 2025, and I think and I want to thank them for that, because I think that's the fairest way we work together collaboratively, and we will continue to work with the county through COPA 7 in order to get more employment lands released to address the future of Oro-Medonte, which will result in diversing our tax base towards more industrial, to alleviate the pressures on the residential levy that currently exists and is very high. So I will leave it at that and open the floor for questions, or comments. Councillor Schell?
Yeah, does this mean we might have to rewrite our land acknowledgement agreement?
No, I think it's still pretty. I will not comment would be the best thing to do at that time. But I will circle back with you if I have a proper answer for that question. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Well, I suppose this is a great big round of thank yous. I want to echo what everybody else has said quite clearly. It's been my honor to work with the team here in Oro-Medonte, the planning team, and we don't sit here except by the grace of our electorate, and our electorate was very supportive and assisted us in understanding what it was they expected of us throughout the process. So we did what we could do to reflect that, and I want to thank staff because they set out a set of goals and guidelines that I believe we held to, met, and respected. There were terms of reference that were engaged in with the Land Facilitation Office, and I believe that this township uniquely adhered to those terms of reference and respectfully and with great dignity treated our bargaining partners. This is an important aspect of such an emotional type of bargaining, and it's very important that we reached a respectful conclusion at the end whereby we received the appropriate compensation for the lands that we surrendered jurisdiction to. So once again, in summary, thank you all.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you, and I'm not going to repeat anything other than there was a point in this term of council where I was to take over the chair of the deputy mayor, and this was the key reason why I stepped back from that decision, because you were so heavily involved in these negotiations that were extremely difficult and complicated. And I am really very pleased that I did that, and I'm very pleased with the outcome that we have in front of us today. I also just did want to say thank you to Mrs. Voorhees and the members of the community who really did make your voices heard, but in a very respectful and measured way. As the mayor had mentioned, it's an emotional time for people. And I was incredibly impressed with you, Jane, and with the group of supporters that you had in your organization, in your knowledge of what was happening, in your ability to articulate what you felt you should see happen as a result of this, as well as your reflection today and the learnings from the process, because I too feel some of those emotional feelings that you had said, some of the statements you made, I would echo, because this was a huge learning curve for all of us. This is the first time in the history of Oro-Medonte that there's been an annexation. And so for this council and the staff to work through that and get the result that we have achieved, I think we should all be very proud. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. Any other, I want to give the opportunity, because the person that worked the academic end of the file for 2 years, Mr. Van Vancourt, did you have any last comments? And thank you for all the support and the digging and education you provided, me and the rest of council on this matter.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. No, I think Mr. Binns covered it well. I just wanted to echo one point, and that was Councillor Hutchinson's point. I think you made it as well, Your Worship, just in terms of the public engagement on this matter. It was really impressive to see the public thoroughly engaged in this matter, and certainly made their views known to members of council, which was reflected in the ultimate decision. So that's it. Thank you, Your Worship.
And thank you very much for everything. So, I think, if there's nothing else, I have to wrap this up. I think the theme is it shows the success when we work together as a collaborative team, from our residents all the way to council, including staff. And what is a very somber initial objective becomes a very enlightening result. We gave up about 0.77% of our township's land area, and even when we go into our next phase, that won't be come to closure until the next term of council. Between Orillia and Barrie, we will give up less than 1% of our land mass. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's about building solutions for the regional area, and we need to do our part, even though it may not be our first choice. But we're here to work collectively and professionally, and I think that's what got us to the end result that we have. So I do want to thank the province for assigning facilitators to the process, because things were kind of going sideways without having a third party engage. But like I said, democracy is not always pretty, right? So, but I think I just want to applaud everybody for all their energy and time. And you know what? Hopefully it's behind us and we don't have annexations to deal with again for a very, very long time. In ice storms we can put in the back shed and leave there. So anyways, Madam Clerk, we have a motion for this, please? Or actually, are we going to, do you want to do them all and then we can?
Yes.
Okay, so These are all for information only, so there is B, D, which are the tree clearing issues. And then, does anybody have questions regarding item B, which is the Shanty Bay Estates tree harvesting that they want to discuss at this time, or will we just? Seeing none, then C is the tree harvesting in Warminster on Highway 12. Is there any questions regarding that matter? Seeing none, and then D is the remuneration by Ms. Johnson, and we're going to pull that for some discussion. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to say that in terms of the remuneration perspective from the disbursements and then reimbursement for expenses, that I think that document needs to be presented, at least in terms of certainly my own and perhaps Councillor Bard's statement, to reflect that what was issued to the township in terms of the individual columns. And I think that I'd like to see that motion amended so that there is a new revision that comes out that states sort of a debit and a credit line, because in my own circumstance, I certainly expended more money than what was allowed for. I wasn't compensated for that, but that did come out of my own pocket, and I'm not objecting to that. I did that willfully and of my own free will in order to represent the members of this community. And I think it just, for the sake of transparency, it should show up in that manner. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and I agree with what you're saying, and because the public reads this, and we want to make sure that we're being transparent of how those funds were submitted and which ones were, because we all did have a budget to work within, our discretionary budget for education and travel. So, Ms. Johnson, would you like to add any color or comments to that, or just the acceptance that we're going to come back with an amended report? Okay, thank you very much. And just because she doesn't have a mic, she said yes, that would happen. Just so I'll be the translator. So we're just going to give the clerk a second just to amend the motion before it's read. So Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask, just so we're all on the same page for clarity. So do we want to pass the three as a group, and then you can read the amendment to D, and then we'll pass it separately? Does that make sense?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I have it all in one. I have it all in one report, and you can choose to accept that, or if you want to divide it out, that's fine as well.
Okay, so I guess the only question I had is, because we're not accepting it in its whole, it's going to come back. Do we need to deal with that separately as a separate motion?
No, I have it in one motion.
Okay.
And we'll see what you think.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then you know what? I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to listen, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Moved by Clark, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the reports as listed under item number 12, reports of municipal officers for information only, be received, with the exception of item 12D to be withdrawn, and a revised report be brought forth at the next council meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you get a gold star for efficiency. That was very well done. Okay, so everyone's heard the motion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? There's none opposed. That is passed. So we're now at item 13, reports. Are there any updates of members of council as township representatives or partners and agencies? Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Sorry. Yes, I do. I just wanted to say a few words about the top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario meeting that was held on March 23rd. There has been a considerable amount of interest expressed by much larger municipalities, particularly big city municipalities such as Burlington, because they do have either quarries within their boundaries or adjacent to them. So this is becoming a more and more urgent issue. There were presentations made to the city of Caledon, the Western Wardens, the city of Burlington, and the township of Melanchthon has also expressed some interest. The TAPMO is certainly increasing its online presence and profile and offerings to municipalities who are experiencing emerging requirements in terms of how to handle and deal with and create bylaws for aggregate activities. Now, the Aggregate Act of Ontario is the preeminent act. It overrides zoning acts and any other things that municipalities can do because it's regarded as a provincial asset. So there is limited things that a municipality can do. However, there are things that can be done. One of the big concerns was the ongoing industrial operations on unclosed aggregate facilities where they're not actually withdrawing aggregate, but they haven't closed off the license, but they use those sites for further processing. So those municipalities experience a lot of heavy truck traffic on their roads and get no compensation or levy from that because it's only aggregate that is taken out, weighed, and delivered, for which municipalities get compensated through a levy. There are also 2 vacant board of director positions on TAPMO. We plan on filling them until the end of the term from the member municipalities by appointment. And the association will continue to create more online materials in video form for municipalities to observe to see how they can increase their diligence around aggregates. With regard to the county council did acknowledge acceptance of the option 1 Aurelia boundary adjustment involving the townships of Oro-Medonte and Severn, which was the same one that the council here in Oro-Medonte also endorsed. And they did commend Aurelia for following a municipal comprehensive review process, which seemed to go somewhat more smoothly than the process we've just been previously talking about. There were 60 applications to the Economic Development Grant Program from the county, and the county will distribute just over $400,000, for those economic development grants. And there was a letter from Metrolinx regarding the Innisfield Beach Road grade crossing, which they want grade separation from Metrolinx. This would be a major capital project that the county and the townships or towns of Innisfil and Bradford, West Gwillimbury did not plan for. Probably be in the range of $60 to $100 million. So there'll be ongoing discussion about that. So this was an announcement from Metrolinx, who of course is an arm of the Ontario government. So that's it from and tomorrow there's a meeting of the airport board. So the airport board agenda is out in the public. So if you want to see it, please go and have a look. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the update. Anyone else? Councillor Bard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, from the Orillia Public Library. Pleased to report that the government, the federal government made amendments to Bill C-15 in which they're now including the free mailing of letters, books, and tapes and records for use by the blind, which was part to be removed from that, and also amended to include a reduced postage for library materials that are shared through an library loan program. So the Orillia Public Library had supported that, so it was good to see that the government listened on that. And at our last meeting, we approved the 2025 capital plan, 10-year capital plan, and some of the pieces to that would be replacing the furniture in the fireplace area, and some work chairs and makerspace furniture, study tables, etc. have been approved. And just in some general housekeeping things, they're doing an art installation there this week, so parts of the library will be out of bounds, but it's operating as business as usual. It will be closed on Good Friday and Easter Monday, and if you're very, very brave, you can go to the library on Saturday, in which is the busiest day of the year, where they have more than double their usual patrons, so it's a pretty busy place. I think there's an Easter egg hunt and the farmer's market, and then the library is just jam-packed. So, and March break was very successful again this year, especially with the weather. The programmings are very, very full, and everybody was happy, and it was pretty loud and fun and busy. So
Thank you very much, Councillor Bard. Is there any other updates at this time? Seeing none, then we'll move to the consent agenda under item 14. Do you wish to poll any items for council to consider the staff recommendation? Seeing none. I'll just comment briefly to one. We don't have to pull it. Item B, the MECP update regards to the amalgamation of conservation authorities. What was announced last week there's still more questions than there are answers, and I know next month Councillor Schell and myself will be sitting, and Councillor Hutchinson will be having meetings with our environmental and conservation authorities to try and get more clarity, and then report back to council at the following meeting, I believe. Other than that, if there's nothing, Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, I did want to mention, because it did come up at the aggregate meeting yesterday, is that it would be helpful if the conservation authorities could determine what they see going forward in terms of aggregate pit applications, as they may or may not impact the watersheds. And I know that there might be concerns there, because it's a fairly broad impact if they're in a controlled zone or adjacent to a controlled zone, or have rights over a controlled environmental zone. The other thing I would ask that our representatives represent at the Conservation Authority meetings is, what are the plans that the conservation authorities are going to do? What is their action plan to comply with the amalgamation of the conservation authorities? Because that's going to happen. And I think, as I mentioned in the last meeting, there's been a lot of concerns addressed about the amalgamation, but it is going forward. So we can't take the approach that it's a negative thing and therefore we're not going to participate in it. It's going to happen, and if we don't participate in a manner of constructive criticism, we're going to end up with a debacle that we don't want. So I think it's, got to lay out the plan and got to find out how to get there as organizations. So that's all I will say to my colleagues who represent the township in those associations.
Thank you. And Councillor Schell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Greenlaw, through you to our deputy. we are having our next meeting on this Friday. So if you don't mind sending your requests to me by email, that way I'll have exactly the way you want it worded, and I'll bring it at the table.
No.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, perfect. And just to kind of touch on and reiterate and expand on the deputy's comments, this is an important time for all the members that sit on the boards to make sure they're there, because there is going to be an uploading, and we want to make sure that we are best protected and ensure that the Oro-Medonte voice is heard through the respective CAs and EAs moving forward, because we don't want to look back and say, well, I wish we would have done this or would have asked that, because this is the time, and the next 6 to 8 months is critical. So, okay, is there anything else then, Madam Clerk? Can we have a motion to receive the consent agenda, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the staff recommendations with respect to the items listed under consent agenda correspondence be adopted as printed, as amended to add item 14C. And Mr. Mayor, that was the item that was added at the approval of the agenda.
Okay, yeah. Oh, perfect. So everyone's heard the motion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? None are opposed, Madam Clerk, so that passes. Okay, so we have no communications or petitions this week, no notice of motions coming forward. Oh, sorry, Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Greenlaw. I'd like to bring forward at the next council meeting a motion regarding septic inspections within the township.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so Madam Clerk, we're now at 17 draft bylaws. Are there any questions or comments regarding the draft bylaws? Then may we have a motion for the draft bylaw, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2026-029, being a bylaw to amend number 2025-129, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Oro-Medonte to provide for the imposition of fees and charges, the fees and charges bylaw as amended, to take effect on approval of the set fines by the Attorney General's office, and it be passed in open council on the 25th day of March 2026.
Thank you very much. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? There's none opposed. That is carried, Madam Clerk. And now we need a motion to go into close, please, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that we do now go into closed session at 4:15 p.m. to discuss labor relations, employee negotiations, collective agreement.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll see everyone in closed.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. May we have a motion to rise and report out from close, please?
Moved by Young, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that we do now rise at 5:10 p.m. and report on closed session items 18B, Sean Binns, Chief Administrative Officer, Kelly Watson, Director of People and Culture, Labor Relations, Employee Negotiations, Collective Agreement.
All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a draft motion for item 18B, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Shall. Be it resolved that the confidential presentation provided by Sean Binns, CAO, and Kelly Watson, Director of People and Culture, Labor Relations, Employee Negotiations, Collective Agreement, be received and endorsed. That the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to execute a collective agreement between the Township of Oro-Medonte and QP Union Local 2380-04 for the 3-year term from 2026 to 2028. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so everyone's heard the motion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. And may we have a draft motion for the confirmation bylaw, please?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one housekeeping matter. The previous bylaw that was passed, 2026 at 029, I did read at the end, as amended, to take effect on approval of the set fines by the Attorney General's office. We will remove that line with a friendly amendment from council. If that's okay, it does not need approval
Yes,
from the
that's
Attorney
fine.
General. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So could we have the confirmation bylaw, please, when ready?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2026-037, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, be passed in open council on the 25th day of March 2026.
All in favor? Any opposed? No one's opposed. That's carried. And before we call for a motion of adjournment, just one thing we forgot to mention earlier is the Easter egg hunt is in Hawkstone is this Saturday, March 28th at 10 a.m. And to register to meet at line 11 in the rail trail. So everybody who wants to come out for the Easter egg hunt with your kids, that is a great event. So. And Madam Clerk, now may we have a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 5:13 p.m.
All in favor? That is carried. Everyone have a great day. We will be taking a 5-minute break and then we'll be going to our special council MSC meeting.